just blow your mind. Talking absolute DC and leaving everything else behind. Sayako, it's the Weird Science DC Comics Absolute DC Show. It's the Weird Science DC Comics Absolute DC Show. So let's go.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Absolute DC Comics podcast here at Weird Science. We're in the Weird Science studios. Me and Gray. What up, Gray?
What up, Jim?
What up, everybody?
Where
I
are we?
guess. I don't know. Here we are. We promise maybe not to be as goofy as last week, that there was, conflicting opinions of me and you booping at the end of the last episode. But hey, here we are.
It was a lot of fun, that, Jim, and you cut it out. I was disappointed. You cut it out of the Patreon
I
one.
did.
You know,
I cut it out on the regular feed. They
Yeah.
don't need the nonsense. That's what I figured. But here we are.
Who doesn't need nonsense? Come
Well,
on.
I guess everybody does. Brandon says, let's go. And we're going to go. And when you are listening to this, if you do end up listening on the podcast feed, where we do actually have a weekly podcast as well. I just want to tell you that, Gray. But
Do you?
in the meantime,
I thought you'd quit.
if you end up and you are like, what are they talking? Be booping and all that, come and visit us and join us live Friday nights at 7:15 kind of p.m. I'm telling you that the reason why we started a little late is so ridiculous. I figured it out, by the way, while the theme was running. I end up where I have my comic book reader, and it was all out of whack, which I'm telling you, one little thing will send me off on a tangent. I was getting all upset. I was getting angry. But here we are. I got it better.
Some people would say you're obsessed, Jim.
Maybe it is. But it is one
It's
of
the
the
little
things
things,
where
isn't it? I know.
when we do recordings, even, not even just this, but everything, I like to have the book up on my screen, but I like to have 2 pages at all times, because it's not just the idea of, going through and then they do this. Now, I like to see what's coming up and things like that. And, sometimes I don't even read the books before actually, I do read them, but that's about it. But here we are, and we end up where we have one book, Absolute Flash. And
We do, yeah.
I'll tell you one thing. I guess it's not a diss on the book for saying a Flash book is fast. But boy, this thing is fast. Like, we're going to get through this really quick.
That's been one of the main criticisms, not just this issue, but, the series so far. It's like very fast and there's not a lot happening. But
Yeah.
I think, Jeff, he's like developing the characters, Jim, which is very important.
Oh, Jeff, you say? I'm the first.
First name terms.
It's
I
forgot
forgot his surname. I was like, oh my God, what's he called again?
I
have to
think
say
I
Jeff.
call him Mr. Lemire, but you're just going Jeff.
Ooh.
Oh my goodness gracious.
Wait a minute, I get mixed up with a land shark. Sorry, never mind.
Yeah, really. Nobody wants to do that this week. That was rough. And speaking of
Jesus.
which, all around type of deal, if you do like hearing me and Gray have a little goofy fun, me and him also end up doing a bunch of books on our Marvel podcast. Me, Gray, and Dr. Matt do the Marvel podcast. That's on its own feed, also shows up here on YouTube. And then you're going to be joining me after this. After this, you're going to be joining me to do a couple of the DC books for this week. This week it got scrambled up. A lot of people going on vacation, a lot of people impromptu stuff. So we'll be doing
How dare
some
they?
things too. I know. How dare they have a life? I end up where at one point, like everybody thinks I'm going to flip out. Like they're like, well, I'm really sorry. Brad ended up, him and his wife decided they were going on like an impromptu type vacation type deal. I'm like, that's cool. You don't have to apologize or anything. You're doing me a favor by doing anything, including you, Gray. So thank you, Gray. But here we are to talk Absolute Flash. Like I said, it's very quick. And
It is.
we did have some people mention that they picked up the book after hearing us talk about a couple of issues. And I said to you, that's kind of odd, because while I do like the book, I think I said that I wouldn't recommend it to people only because I'd be afraid that they wouldn't like it because it is so quick. And maybe it is a book that should be better read in trade, or maybe on the app first before you kind of put money down for individual issues.
I know.
But
Is it worth the $4.99? That's the
don't
question.
know.
That's what people are asking. Is there enough content for it?
yeah, it's tough. It's tough. I like it. I do like it.
I
Now
do.
we're going to talk about this issue, and I saw a
goofy.
lot of people really getting upset about a certain thing in here, and I think they have to grow up. But here we are. We have Flash, Absolute Flash number 4. Jeff Lemire writing, A.L. Kaplan on art, a fill-in artist, Chris Sotomayor on colors, Tom Napolitano on letters, and you have an Ash Padilla. I like that name, Ash Padilla.
I like the way you
Sounds
said
really
that.
kick-ass. Yeah, well, I almost said Andrew Marino, but I had to go assistant editor, Ash Padilla. Then Andrew Marino, senior editor, Kitty Kubert, group editor, Chris Conroy, executive editor. So the big thing that I saw was the fill-in artist deal, and it is pretty quick to have a fill-in artist. And
issue 4, Jim. I know,
yeah,
right?
and A.L. Kaplan does draw Wally a little bit feminine. You end up where
just a touch.
just a
of
tiny
feminine.
touch. It ends up where when you
Those
first had,
eyelashes.
well,
Me on.
yeah, exactly. I actually was like, I think he looks like a sexy Archie. That's what he ends up looking like, right? And that's just regular Archie, though I'm not really a Ginger fan. So they end up in this.
Shots fired.
Yeah,
Gingers.
really. When you end up having this series announced, and they end up having the first initial sketches and things like that, a lot of people did end up saying, I'm not going to read it while he looks like a girl. And I'm like, really?
People were losing their minds.
Yeah,
Jim,
just
really?
I
Do you
don't
remember?
get it. I just don't get the idea that he's just a kid. He's 15. It's verified in this issue. And maybe he does a little eyeliner or something, right? Maybe he's listening
No,
to the
he's good looking,
Smiths.
isn't he? I used to be a bit effeminate when I was young, and look how I turned out. I turned out all right, didn't I?
No. That's a really bad example. Like, here he is, though.
Thanks.
Like, he might be there. He's listening to The Cure. He's listening to some
He is.
Smiths, stuff like that. He might be writing dark poetry. Again, I'm not a huge art guy. I'm more of a story guy. So when I see that, I'm like, all right. Now, when he's talking to Linda, it does get a little, but it doesn't ruin it for me. I had one person legit say they're not reading it anymore. They're done because of how he looked in this issue. I'm like, really? Like,
That is
I don't,
ridiculous,
I don't
Jim.
get that. I just don't get it. But he is talking
Did you
to
say
Linda.
Linda, by the way?
Yeah,
Linda.
Linda. I end up in this book. What you really get is more name drops. This issue is a big name drop issue, and some of them are pretty cool. Linda's cool. I mean, they are younger in this, but you have Linda.
I like this version
mainly
of
with
Linda. I
Wally.
do.
Yeah, I do too. She's
She's
sassy.
good. She's cool.
But then
She's sassy too.
who knows what went wrong? And I know what 99.9% of the people will think when she's like, oh, hey, what happened to you? And she doesn't want to talk about it. I'm like, that got dark. But in the meantime, you also have Thawne mentioned. You have Eleanor Thawne that's working with Wally's dad. Now, one of the big things that I have not an issue with, but what I think in this issue that got me is, do you think that Wally's dad actually seems that, like, he doesn't seem like he's that upset that
No, he
Wally
doesn't.
is, it seems like he's doing it in a way of like, okay, I'm supposed to say that I'm upset, but then once you have Thawne start saying, then he gets angry in a different way, but it never felt like he was really like, oh my God, like I would lose my mind. If, well, maybe not with my kids, but the people would,
Depend
right?
on the kid.
Yeah,
Depend
it
on
would. I mean, if it
Which
might be
one?
Logan, my youngest, but if it's Ethan in the middle, who knows? Maybe but it doesn't feel to me like he's like losing his mind, like, I gotta find him. He's very calculating about it. He's very kind of calm
He keeps asking
at
Jim, he
points.
keeps using the words like, I want to know what's happened to Wally. Not like, where is he? And get him here now. He's like, what's happened to Wally?
Yeah,
Doesn't it?
exactly.
Which is
like
weird.
more
Dad wouldn't say
technical.
that.
It's one of those where I'm telling
Yeah,
you,
it is. It's more technical. Yeah, yeah.
with
right.
all the true crime stuff and all that came about, my wife was really into it, but she's also like really into tons of that stuff and shows like that as well. So when people would go and, oh my God, this wife disappeared and the husband gets up and has a press conference, she's all big on that. Those aren't tears, or what's this? And I don't see
He
it
did it.
Yeah, I don't see that with the
No.
dad. He seems a little bit over the top. But yeah, that's the thing. Brandon said,
At one
does
point
this
he
book
said,
have a
"I'll go for it."
story? But it does
Does it?
just seem like name dropping. That's what the main thing seems to be for
It's been
this
4 issues
book.
of them trying to get Wally back.
Yeah,
pretty much.
and I'll
That's
ask
it,
Brandon,
failing.
who is like the only guy talking to us at the moment. But in this, I don't hate the book. I wonder if he like it doesn't do enough to hate, right?
I'm
It
enjoying.
just
No, not
it
at
just
all.
ends up where
I'm
it
enjoying
feels like you want more, but it's okay. I like the characters, but what is happening? because nothing really is going on. He says, I just didn't think it was going anywhere. Also, the art was kind of trash for me. Also, did the father give two craps about this? I don't think he does. I think that in my mind, how it plays out is he's upset that Wally's missing because that makes him look bad. Also,
Yeah.
because Barry's dead. I mean, even Barry being dead, they're not very emotional about it.
They're
You know,
not.
they're
And Jim, there's
just-
something else. Going back to the dad here, like here's another line where he's like, you know, at one point he does say, okay, I need to get him back here safely. And then he gets cut off. It's like, it's not just getting him back, you know, he wants to do something, doesn't he, when he gets him back, basically.
Yeah.
Is he going to develop him? He wants
Yeah,
him, maybe he wants
again,
him to
that's
be a
the
weapon.
weird thing, though. He seems to want Thawne not to do it, but that
There's
deals
always
with
more to it.
Lazarus.
It's weird.
It is.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so I think that it starts off, and there's a little cue or a little tip here where Wally's freaking out and says, okay, I got to think of things that I see. I got to think of all these things. It's a kind of a calming thing that his
Like a
mom
centering
taught
thing.
him.
Yeah,
But
grounding yourself.
unfortunately,
Yeah.
when he's doing that, she's dead and in the ground. But ends up where he says, I see my father in his military dress, trying not to cry, trying to be strong because he thinks that's what I need him to be. And again, I think that the dad is this guy who just, I think he might have some issues. He might be on
He
the
doesn't
spectrum,
look like he's
right?
trying not to cry
No,
to me. Or maybe
no,
it's just
and-
the art, but he
and-
looks very kind of
Yeah,
stoic there.
and it's just a weird play, and that's where Wally goes off, and he's
Don't
like,
look at the
okay,
ground, Jim. Don't look in the
yeah,
hole.
and then he looks in. This reminds me of when we did have our last kid, and it was a C-section, and so when they ended up getting Logan out, I was led over, and I've cut 5 umbilical cords. It's the worst. Every time I almost pass out. You think it's easy. That shit is tough. But you end up where I'm walking by.
I
and
did
the-
it too with my
Yeah.
daughter. Yeah, I was
yeah,
surprised by
it's
how
a lot
how
tougher than it is,
firm
right?
it
I'm
was.
like really going at it. Like I
Hand me
needed
the
a-
saw, will
Oh,
you,
my
nurse? The
goodness.
scissors aren't working.
Yeah. So as I was walking by, like they're okay, Mr. Warner,
Sorry
come
about
over
that.
here, and ends up saying, "Don't look over at your wife because she's pretty much got an open pit, right? She's just." I can't help it. I looked over,
Mamma
almost
mia,
threw
Jim.
up.
Where are we going with this?
I'm telling you, that's when he looks into the grave. It was like me looking into the innards of my wife. I almost threw up. I said it was like looking in a pit of hell. And then I ended up cutting that cord. And then they led me into a room because they were testing Logan out to see if he was okay or whatever. And some like intern nurse goes, man, what is this guy and lady thinking having 5 kids in a world like this? And I'm like, yeah, that's me. And then she was embarrassed. And she's like, I'm sorry. I said, listen, I don't know why the hell we're having 5 kids either, except I like to have sex. That's what I told her. But you end up where
Boom.
in the
Take that,
pit,
nurse.
there's Barry, and it's all like swirling together in his mind of all the things that have happened. And I mean, does Barry's death, did it ever really affect you? Because I mean, we've seen it like 50 times already, right? I mean, they keep showing
I
us.
don't know.
his
Did we even
death
see it in real
well,
time?
we
saw
did
it like
kind of.
after the fact, didn't we?
Yeah, he
I
kind
don't
of
even
like
remember anymore.
dissipates and things, but I'm telling you,
Yeah.
because it happens so quickly in the series, I really wasn't that connected with Barry anyway.
No.
And so then you just have where Wally is kind of on the run. He's on the lam. He's outdoors. He's got Crocs on too. It looks like maybe those are his sneakers, but he ends up
Actually,
where.
Jim, that's a good point. Do you think that was a mistake by
Yeah.
Jeff again? By Jeff that he didn't develop Barry's character.
Yeah, I
He just
think so.
basically he started off dead, didn't he? So
Yeah.
he didn't like. We're not.
I
We're not
think that it
invested
was.
in him.
I think that it was
Yeah.
a bit of a misplay, though. I
That's a
don't
good
think
point.
that he's gone forever. I think
It
you're
kind
going
of
to have
means
timey
nothing, doesn't it?
wimey
It's
stuff.
just like Barry.
Yeah.
Wally's like carrying him around with him, basically.
Yeah,
in
so-
his mind or whatever.
Yeah, and we keep seeing him die. I'm like, all right, so that
All right.
before.
He's
And
dead
so
again.
Wally is gone. He's hanging out now. Again, there's a weird play in this because at this point, the rogues, being led by Wally's dad and the government, they're after Wally. They're trying to find him. Now, we find out in a little bit that they're actually tracking Grodd, which might make sense because he's
Yeah.
one of them. But why does Wally seem so calm? He's on the run. He got attacked. All these things are happening. Barry's dead. His dad is in the middle of all this, and he's just sleeping in the park. He gets up. He's like, hey, Grodd, what's up? Hey, let's walk over here. Let's get some food. Like in the whole play, he seems like a smart kid, but he's also has to know that he's
He doesn't
probably
seem
putting.
that freaked out, does he?
He
Do you
doesn't
think it's
freak no.
Grodd?
And
Grodd has got some kind
well,
of calming
he said that
effect on,
he says that
Wally.
he's being calmed down by, and I think
Yeah.
it is Grodd, but that still doesn't make you forget that you're on the run from guys who are trying to kill you. And in my mind, you're putting all these people in danger. You're going in the soup kitchen line, and all these
Yeah.
people could easily get killed in 2 seconds. And just because you're calm and you can think clear doesn't mean that you shouldn't figure some things out and get the hell out of there and act a little bit more like there's some concern. But he kind of says, well, I think that, this might have worn off. The thing that happened with Barry might be wearing off because I can think clear. I'm hungry as hell right now. Again, a Flash thing when we get to it. But he gets into this line, and we're going to get more and more name drops. It's name drop 101 here, where Ralph Dibny comes up behind him. Very sus. I mean, even Wally calls him out. I think that Wally's like, man, I shouldn't have went heavy on that eyeliner today. That Ralph Dibny's really coming on to me. But he's like,
Sparkly
hey,
eyes, Jim,
yeah,
pulling people towards him.
he goes, hey, how old are you? He's like,
Hey,
what's it to you? He's like, whoa,
what's it to
whoa.
you,
Yeah, and he's
dude?
like, say, hey, I have a place. And he goes, I just want to know. I would love the idea. Like, I'm so unlucky that I would be in this situation. Of course, I'd be 19. And he's like, hey, you under 18? We have beds. I'm 19. He's like, okay, go fuck yourself.
See you later.
I'm like, oh, God. It made me upset that I know that would have happened to me. I knew that
I
I'd
love
be
Wally's
the
reply though,
jerk.
Jim, to you. He's like, yeah, how do I know you're not a serial killer? Do I look like a serial killer? Kind of.
Yeah, because he
That's
kind of
pretty
does.
cool.
He kind of does.
He does.
And-
He looks a bit dodgy. He's a bit
And
sus.
Ralph Dibny can be a little sus sometimes.
also a
but
ginger,
it's,
isn't he?
it's a deal, yeah.
I think.
So
Isn't
he ends up, and then Linda walks by, and then he's like, "Oh my goodness!" And she's like, "Hey, he's okay." The dad jokes, and it's really cool. I do like Linda in this. I do like her character
When he
already.
realizes that she stayed there, you can see, look at his eyes. That was the
Oh,
panel
yeah.
that really got me. He's
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
"Woo,
Yeah.
Linda.
And he's like, "Oh my God, there's Veronica," because I look like Archie. And then he starts
Archie.
Archie. You end up where too with this though. I do like, again, you only have a little bit of Linda. They're kids. They're 15. It seems she's probably about the same age. But why do I like her so much more than, say, Lois in the Absolute Superman book? And I love Lois, but in the Absolute Superman, it just doesn't fit with me, her character. So it always feels like it's off, but this feels cool. I actually like the way that this is being played out for the time being. But that's when Ralph says, here's my card if you want to come by. Just come by. And obviously he's there staring as Linda walks away, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to get my ass over there. And he does. But in the meantime, you go off to the rogues who are just there in the middle of the desert trying to figure out what that thing of energy is that Wally created. And that's where you have Jesse go up and say, it's a doorway. And I'm guessing that because we already saw Mirror Master, he's already kind of come through. A doorway to what? And you can only imagine that it's to the regular DCU maybe, or part of the multiverse. I don't know, because we are heading towards what I think is way too quick to maybe have these universes combined. So I'm wondering if maybe the play is where, because that's the thing, Wally and the Flashes, and now this isn't a Speed Force, Jeff Lemire said, but the idea, it usually is the way that they can vibrate different vibrations to go to different universes, and then also through time and things like that. So we'll have to see what that all means. But Jesse goes over and is like, I think I'm going to touch this. And then it like blows up, and the weird reaction is,
What are you doing, Jesse?
oh my God,
Boom.
and then it boom, and they're like, man, thank God that's gone.
It's gone
Because
now.
it crapped me the hell. I'm like, really? Because it just knocked you on your ass. Like, that looked very dangerous. And you're like, oh, man, thank God that shit's gone. I'm like, oh, that's very odd.
What's going on with Wally's dad here as well when he appears in the
Yeah.
background? He looks a bit different, doesn't he, Jim? And
Yeah,
I know
he
it's the artist,
does.
changing artist,
I know
but
it is. He actually reminds me of, what's his name? Chief
Who
of
is it?
the Doom Patrol. It more
Oh,
feel,
yeah.
and they feel
Niles
more like,
Caulder.
they feel more like the Doom Patrol to me than the Rogues, even though they're the Rogues. But it feels a lot Doom Patrol-esque. So we'll end up seeing how that is. But I like his
They've not been
trash
doing
talk.
a very good job, have they?
No, but
Jim,
again,
so
this
far,
is-
the
this is
Rogues.
what I
They
don't-
suck.
They,
don't
they do suck. And the weird thing is, though, again, I guess you can play that Jeff Lemire is playing the dad as a military guy first, father second. But it's like, man, you guys really blew it trying to get that kid. Like, he's talking about Wally when he's yelling at them as if he's a thing. Like, oh,
Yeah,
man, you
15-year-old kid.
yeah,
describes
like
him
even
as.
saying that, you guys couldn't contain a 15-year-old kid. Like, you're talking about your son, and
And
then he
like
kind of
two
pulls
panels later,
back.
he, kind of, he remembers, oh, whoa, my boy, you know.
Yeah,
My
that's
boy,
what I'm
my
saying.
boy, Jim.
It's so odd to say, like, you couldn't contain a 15-year-old. You know, you're trained for much worse than that. And you lost the ape. Oh, by the way, that's my boy.
Yeah.
Like, he even says, like, you're gonna get my son back in one piece, but that feels like he's an asset. You know, that feels like he's a target, not you guys better get my son because I don't know what's going on with him. And when you find him, call me and I got to talk. No, it just feels so like cold, right? It just feels weird. I think
Yeah.
it's written that way. I think that's the way it's supposed to be. But seriously, it's just this guy's a jerk. But yeah, I actually like the Rogues. Coming up, we're going to have a Rogues issue. Again, something that is odd, though, when we're not getting much story. I mean, Wally doesn't really know what's going on with him. That's the first step of
Not
us
until
getting
we-
a story. And so he's just hanging. But
Yeah.
all in all, I don't really mind hanging with him, but it has to do more. It has to do a little more coming up. But yeah, you end up where Wally is eating. Looks like they're in like a converted church, maybe, or a church with the
Nice stained
Gibleys.
glass windows. In the
Yeah, it's
background there,
nice.
Jim.
I do like when you have Wally's eating and he's handing stuff to Grodd. And is the idea where even when Linda says, hey, you really went through that quick, but he's also sharing it with Grodd. Kind of wish that she saw Grodd. That we know, oh, we can trust her and whatnot. She does say, you can have my food because you went through yours, but I wish it was like, hey, you can have
She's
my
pretty
food. since
sassy
you're
with his
sharing
name,
it.
Jim, isn't she? It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
what
I
you
don't
do?
know what
I'm
the-
Wally. Wally?
Do you
Are you
think-
serious?
Do you think that's that bad a name? I don't think
No.
it's that bad. Wallace is worse.
I was
where he's
waiting
like,
for to
well,
say like you start, hey, where's Wally? Ha ha. Like,
yeah. Linda
pull the
isn't
book
even
out.
that. She's like, I thought my name was bad with Linda. I'm like, really?
what's wrong with Linda?
Yeah, I don't think
Linda
those are
McCartney.
that bad. So he ends up in the play when he says, what makes you think I'm not from here? There is the most, that's a chick. It's crazy. But yeah, you find out, hey, how long have you been in Iron Heights? And he's like, how do you know I wasn't living here? And she says, oh, you still look like you have hope. I'm like, really? Because I see him. It doesn't look like he has any. He looks pretty sad. But she says everybody's running from something. And then he says, oh, what are you running from? And then she gets real dark. Like, you don't want to go into that
You
because
better run.
it just really feels like
See you
there's some
later.
abuse going on. And I just don't want to deal with that. So I hope that
No.
that just gets put behind. But she ends up kind of snapping out of it and says, I'm going to get going. You could have my food. You went through that in like 3 seconds. And then she says, see you around, Wallace. So that's the cool
Wallace.
play. She's going to call him Wallace because it's different. So then you end up, and I'm telling you, when you have Ralph come in, I swear to God at first, because I'm like looking at it, I'm like, is he giving him a meth pipe? But then he says, we got 3 rules. No drugs,
It is.
no fights. Doesn't it look like? I'm like, I don't think that's a toothbrush. I
Holy
think he's
shit.
cooking it up here. But he
He is.
goes in. Also, who's this other dude that's just sitting on that bed? That guy's going to cause trouble.
When he first walked in, G, what's happened to his feet? For
Yeah,
God's sake?
yeah,
His
exactly.
right foot.
Yeah, actually, I think
Weird.
he's missing one.
That art is
yeah.
a bit off.
It
Sorry,
is.
guys.
It
Sorry,
is.
folks.
But
Criticize an artist.
it is a little off. Most people have.
It's a bit very sketchy. It's very loose.
It's okay,
isn't it?
but you know when Linda goes off and says, "See you around Wallace," that looks great. There's some things that look
Yeah.
really good. She looks good throughout. I think maybe because we never saw her before, so it's that art. But when you already have seen, say, Wally, he's a little off. But yeah, I'm telling you, at first I'm like, Ralph, what are you doing? Like, he's like the cool guy where he's like, hey, you do drugs? You want to do? Be cooler if you did. But it's like a toothbrush. And he says there's a couple rules: no drugs, no fighting, and you have to help out. So talk to Sue, and at that moment, I just kept thinking, like, what are we doing here? Because we don't really have much of a story going on. I do not need to see Wally washing dishes. I just don't need to see it. I understand that it would be something that happens, but we don't need that. We need to get things going here.
Really, Jim, it develops character.
Yeah,
Also,
well,
I've been told.
Yeah, exactly. What you do is what I did to me and my roommates in college. We threw the dishes out the back window, but then we realized later that there was a big pile of dishes and we got in trouble. It was like a big
Broken
mountain
dishes.
of dishes. Yeah, it was. So it was crazy. But the idea, again, what is happening? Because we're almost done. Because
Yeah.
Wally ends up
So
then,
fast.
yeah. So Wally ends up like, hey, this is pretty cool. I mean, again, he is really hiding, and putting all these people in grave danger. I mean, he has Grodd. Number one, Wally doesn't really know what Grodd is. Grodd is certainly a government asset that they're going to come to try to get, but they've already attacked Wally himself. And here he is with just kids and stuff just hanging, but Grodd gets away. Grodd runs off. And
Grodd
Grodd
doesn't
was
like being stuck in the bag, does he?
No.
Of course, as Wally says, you can't show him. You can't, take him out. People are just
yeah.
going to freak out.
And I did like there was a bit with Grodd where Grodd doesn't want to hide. Grodd doesn't want to be contained.
He's been caged in,
because
hasn't
that's
for
what
a
he is.
long
And
time.
again, that's real good character work without really having to do much, because Grodd ends up saying, don't want to hide. And Wally's like, well, we have to a little, eventually we'll find some place. And really, you have to like Grodd, but Grodd goes off and Wally's got to chase him. In the meantime, Wally's dad said, I'm going to go back and see what the hell Barry was doing. Now, again, Barry's experiment, all this. Barry died and it changed. Well, I would have been doing this the whole time if it was my kid, trying to figure out what's happening. But he goes back, and then that's where you get Thawne.
It's like a destroyed lab, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's in pieces. It's in bits. Like you say, that's weird, isn't it? You think you would have been there the whole time.
Yeah, trying to figure things out.
Work out what exactly happened.
Yeah, so, and also maybe like scraping away some, body parts. I don't know,
brains.
Barry, crazy deal.
The side of the
But
glass
so
there.
there's this difference in the deal. You end up being reminded, because it really wasn't spelled out great, but you end up where Wally's dad, Colonel West, he's there as protection with the Rogues. The Rogues are under his deal. They're protecting this lab and Barry. And Barry died because of experiment. But they're not really like in the need to know deal of really what was going on. And you end up having his dad say, hey, what was Barry doing here when Thawne comes in? And Dr. Thawne, Eleanor Thawne, a woman, and you get that she comes in with a cane. I would like to think that she doesn't need it, that she's just putting on the Ritz here. She's fancy with this cane. But it's kind of a cool play of maybe obviously the Reverse Flash stuff or whatnot. But in the meantime, he says, what was Barry doing? What the hell? And she says, listen, you don't need to know this. We're under contract with Lazarus Corp. That actually does a really good job of tying that in with the Superman book and the world in general, but we still need more story. But says
we do. That's the main thing, Jim. It just needs more story. The whole series, isn't it? Issue 4, and we're still like
so
kinda,
this stuff
what
actually
happened?
This interests me, but I'll tell you, when a book is this ambiguous and this kind of not story going on, I just start making shit up in my head. So I'm like, okay, Thawne's doing the experiments for Lazarus, but also because she has a cane, but she wants to run fast, and now it happened at Wally, and now she's going to try to do it, but it's good. So I start making up things, but you end up where, again, this is where Wally's dad starts to get angry, but not angry in the way of like, you did that. It's basically the idea of, I want to know what's happening, and then I'm going to get my kid.
Asking questions, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, this tech you developed, like the weapons, the rogues, where is it coming from?
Yeah.
So he's trying to find out who's behind it,
and
who's really controlling it.
At one point, they're, hey, we work for Lazarus. Barry was the point man. He was doing things that were off the books, whatnot. Also, R.I.P. The guy's dead, and
He's
they're
dead.
just yelling about him, right?
They're
just yelling, and they're like, "Hey, I want to know what's going on here, and what the hell happened to Wally." And she says, look at her putting on the Ritz with that cane. I'm telling you, she looks so fancy. And she's like, your son, you saw what he did. All the weaponry we've developed here for your team didn't stand a chance against Wally. And he's like, he's a 15-year-old boy, not a test subject. She goes, whoa. No, he's a miracle.
He's a miracle,
And the
Jim.
accident killed Barry Allen, but his death doesn't need to be for nothing. Your son may be the greatest success we've had. So there's where, again, you get that play of, she's working on something. Again, I want to call it the Speed Force, but Jeff Lemire said it isn't necessarily that, but they're working on some sort of thing. And I just think she wants to be able to walk without that cane. But I do like her like black lipstick. Everybody seems goth in this here, but he says he's not a weapon. I need to get him back here safely and undo whatever it is Alan did to him. And then she goes, oh, we know where he is. We're tracking Grodd. And then he flips out. And this goes real quick at the end. He's like, what the hell? Like, what do you mean? This is ridiculous. Now, you would think if there's a deal, because he is, leading the Rogues, you would think that he would have known that he could have tracked Grodd as well, that he would have already done that. But they say, and by the way, that's not the only person who got out. we have some big problems. And you do see where you have Heat Wave, Weather Wizard, you would guess, and Firestorm, and then XXXXX, which is, obviously
That's an Aussie beer in it, Jim.
yeah.
Australians
I
wouldn't
was
give
gonna
a
say
Castlemaine 4X for anything else.
It's either some porno or it's also maybe it's a Vin Diesel from that stupid, what was that Triple X movie? Him and Ice Cube, I guess, was part of that. But ends up where they're like, oh yeah, we have some of our more volatile things, and that's where it says the ape. They're not even calling him Grodd. The ape is leading him. Your son, right?
Again, this kind of came out of nowhere, doesn't it? I mean, it's a cool double-page spread where, oh wow, look at this, but it's like there was no setup for this, was there? It's just
no,
like suddenly, oh, by the way, there are other experiments in the wild.
Well, we were told about Heat
Really?
Wave. We were told about Heat Wave, and we're told about
mentioned, isn't
Firestorm.
it? Yeah, that's right.
But I didn't know that this explosion
In the
that
same
got
lab,
out
it was
was
going
very
on.
odd.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and like, how did they break it? It's a weird play. I think they were actually let
As
go.
you say,
It
she
looks
says
crazy.
like the ape is leading your son right to them.
Yeah.
Why? Why is
Yeah.
that? Why is Grodd like taking Wally to the
Yeah,
Heat
and
Wave?
so I think that the play has to be that you're like, oh my God, this is bad, Grodd's. I think that it's actually not that bad. I think that this is part of the deal where Grodd is going towards Heatwave, trying to maybe help Heatwave, trying to go and in that saying hot, hot. And Wally's like, I know I put a lot of eyeliner on. I am hot. But he's like, no, I mean, it's getting hot. And he's like, it is getting hot in here. And then they end up where Heatwave is down in the sewers because he chases Grodd down there. And I don't know, for some reason, I think that Heatwave looks like a lady. And not a great looking lady, but I think. But we'll see what the deal is.
I think it was Brandon maybe earlier was asking, what the heck is that final page?
Yeah.
What is it even meant to be?
Yeah, it just looks like a molten
blurry,
lava.
dripping
I mean,
mess.
even at one point, it looks like the arm is like just like flesh burnt off of them. Or I think that
like bone.
I think this heat wave is suffering pretty bad. I think that it's Grodd trying to save or help them, but in the meantime, being tracked to do this, which does. In a subtle way, Jeff Lemire makes a bit of sense that if they knew where Wally was, the reason why they're not going after him right away is because they need to get Heatwave. They need to get Firestorm. They need to get him back. So they're waiting for Grodd to find them like this, and then they'll try to swoop in and grab them all at once. But it's probably going to be a bad idea. Probably should have grabbed Wally already, but we'll see. But it's very quick, and there's not a lot of story that is like a Flash story. There's some world building things more from name drops, and the cliffhanger is pretty cool. But again, I mean, what is the main story? I don't know when we're gonna ramp this up to get what feels like a real Flash book. I mean, when you sit there and think about, like, say, we'll go with Batman, the big book.
I was going to say the same thing, Jim. Just think about that last issue. How much story was in that compared to this?
And where are we with that? Like, nobody's sitting there thinking, oh man, what's this Batman about? Hey, what's this Batman? It's pretty much like Batman, but big dumb Batman, and you have the crazy stuff going on. But each issue, you're kind of giving us Batman. In this, we really haven't gotten any Flash
I love
yet.
Batman. I don't care being dissed. For
we're dumb.
Because it's entertaining. You know what I mean?
We're dummies. But yes,
never gonna let that go.
Seriously, I'm telling you, I'm not mentioning that other book this week. I made a deal to myself that I would not mention. The Absolute Martian Manhunter. I just mentioned it. But,
you said it. But before this issue, Jim, like I was enjoying this mainly for the art. It's a shame about the filling artist, issue 4 already. But you're right, and people in the chat, you're right that it needs a lot more story. Brandon would say, what story? Where's the story? But it needs to do a lot more, doesn't it? Come on.
Yeah, it's just crazy.
4 issues,
and with all this, with the deal, it's just I don't know. I don't hate it though. I don't dislike it. I just end up where it's a tough thing to say, oh, it's great because there's no story yet. I like the characters. I like some of the things, but I can't say that it is.
We're lucky, Jim, aren't we? Because we're able to, pretty much get a review copy so we can do it. But I would not be putting my money down for this.
No,
it's not good enough to warrant $4.99.
No,
sorry.
And I have the Ultra app deal by accident. I wanted to cancel for a whole year, and I forgot, and then I got charged like $140.
Yeah, but
That
if you don't have Ultra, you've got to wait 6 months
Yeah,
before
so
they
screw
release the
that.
digital.
Yeah,
That is
so
insane,
I
isn't it?
would be reading it in that, or I would just
Yeah,
trade
yeah,
wait. But
same. If I had it, which I can't in Japan, they don't do it here
oh
yet.
yeah,
You know, we're,
yeah,
we're
that's the
third world
deal.
over here, Jim. It's not
Yeah.
available.
Yeah. Oh,
Um,
and Brandon asked if we would keep reviewing Absolute Martian Manhunter. I don't even know what that book is. I've never heard of it. I don't know what he's talking about, Gray. We'll see. I got in fights with people like for 2
you,
weeks,
I've
2
got a
weeks
question for
now
you
about
from
that book.
Who Dat Nation as well, but we can maybe address that after we give
Yeah,
our
we
scores.
could.
What do you
Well, we'll
reckon?
give our score. What would you give this?
Yeah, I'm a 6 out of 10. Just a
Yeah.
straight 6.
Yeah, I want to give it a 6.5, but I don't think I can. I think I'm a 6 out of 10.
It's really disappointing me because I was enjoying it. I was kind of bigging it up, saying it's probably my my third favorite of the Absolute.
Yeah.
It's just really disappointing.
And
me,
it's
this
still
issue.
my third favorite, but no, it's actually my fourth. I do like Superman more than
Yeah,
this. You're
yeah.
a little down on Superman.
It's between that and Superman. Yeah, this is
but
Superman. So I'm like, I
the
don't know.
the 3 books, this Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern, the second wave, they just aren't really real concerned with telling any story. They seem to be wacky for wacky's sake, or just kind of meandering, and I just don't.
But they both
get
have
it.
the fans, which is
Yeah, yeah.
people like them. Some
And
people really like them.
Brandon said that I actually don't. I don't mind the art that much. It's just Wally looks a little different, but I
I'm
do
the same.
mind
It's
it.
not bothering me.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. And I'm
I
again,
just
I don't.
prefer the main artist.
Art is not a thing that actually even concerns me for the most part. I don't put that in. Like a lot of people go 5 art, 5 story. I never do that. It's just a gut
No, I
feeling
don't.
of combined. So
It
for
can
me,
raise it by a point if it's really,
Yeah.
really good art, or for example, if it's a crap story but the art's amazing. You know, I will give it. I won't give it like a 0 or a 1. You know,
yeah.
I'll
Yeah.
give some credit for the art.
Now, and I did like some of the Lazarus mention and the idea of Linda being there, the Dibneys, but we'll see. We'll see how
Well,
it goes.
it's Wally and Grodd, and then Linda for me. This issue, that was the best things about it.
Yeah. So that is that. But there is a question you said. I don't even have
Yeah.
the thing up. I gotta
Shall I
get
read it? Who
up.
Dat Nation saying, Jim, with the Absolute stuff, did you hear anything about Donny Cates supposedly was scheduled to be on Absolute
Yeah.
Nightwing?
All I hear is
I've heard nothing.
all I've heard is that Donny Cates is can't be on anything. There's no way that I heard.
Oh,
that,
really?
Yeah, I heard things with the idea that he even had like a table set up at some convention recently, and nobody could find him. Like nobody's hiring him right now. It sucks because I love him. I think that he's great. And remember, this past week he ended up having that announcement that Null was coming back, but people thought it was Donny Cates coming back on Venom,
Yeah.
and it was not. But yeah, Brandon, I gave it a 6 as well. Is what I
Yes,
gave
Jim
it.
said 6 too.
Yeah, it says
Brandon
I'm the
gave it a
same with
3,
art unless
Jim.
it's amazing.
3 out of
Kelvin.
10.
Yeah, I know. It's just the crazy deal. I
Wow.
end up where I'm not a guy who even checks out art. I do, but it does end up not my thing. So I end up liking art a lot of times. But if I don't like it, I'm more of a style guy than actual individual deal. And I thought that the style actually fits. It's just that some of the characters look a little
I'm a
different.
style guy, eh? Look at you getting full
I'm a
fancy.
stylish guy.
I'm a
But yeah,
style
I'm telling
guy.
you, I'm just looking through it. There's only a couple panels that I didn't like with the art. The one was when Wally's like, "What makes you think I'm not from here?" And it didn't look like Wally. But some of the other stuff with Linda and stuff like that, I thought looked pretty good. I thought looked okay. Just looks a little more cartoony than what was normally the deal. But again, what happens too is when people be like, "Oh man, this art stinks from what they know." I can't even remember like even saying that the art in this book even was good. Great overall anyway. So
I liked it
that's
because it was
just me.
different. It was a good style. It's a lot better than the Absolute Green Lantern style, which again, some people do like that, but I prefer Absolute Flash. The first 3 issues, I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So again, with Donny Cates, I haven't heard anything, and I think that what happens because Donny Cates is so, whacked out at the moment. I've heard a bunch of things that he was definitely going to be in the Ultimate Universe stuff, that he was
Yeah.
going to do like Ultimate Spider-Man at one point and some things like that. So I think that at this point, people are just making up stuff of like, hey, Donny Cates was going to do this and he was going to do that and he was going to do that. But if you were going to hire him, you might as well hire him for something that is like an absolute or an ultimate deal. But I don't think Marvel is definitely not. He ended up costing him a lot of money. I hear that he burned those bridges. And DC, I wish they would grab him, but I don't think that he's quite ready to do that, which is a shame. But that is it. That is it for the show. Me and you are going to be going off to record some DC stuff for the regular podcast. I hope that, as Brandon said, I'm in a good mood. I don't know about
Jim,
that.
6 out of 10. I think you surprised him, Jim. I think you surprised quite a few people.
Yeah, I like the thing. It's such, these books, some of them are just weird, but I didn't mind the art, and there's just no story. But I think I'm kind of getting in a groove with these other things. These 3 books, the second wave, they're really not telling any story. I just don't know. I don't know, but I do like Jeff Lemire. But I had the same problem with the JSA book, and he just takes his freaking time. But we'll see.
Well, that last issue was awesome.
We'll see. Yeah. It felt like it should have been the first issue.
Like,
so
finally.
I'm waiting for
finally.
that to be this, and I guess I could, if I was going to give a different score, it would go down. I couldn't go up to a 6.5, but I could go down to a 5.5 or a 5. But
it's not
I'm
an
just
FU5,
hoping
is
that,
it? We were saying that
No.
before in the chat. It's not that bad. It's not terrible. I don't think it's a bad story. It's just not enough.
but it's not the story that you need when you start out a universe. Is the problem? You need a little more.
Way too slow.
With that, though, we're going to get out of here and go record some things. So thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks, everybody, for joining us in the live chat. If you are listening as a podcast deal, you can join us every Friday that there's an Absolute book out that's not called Absolute Martian Manhunter.
Do you have a podcast, Jim?
And
really?
yeah, there is. And it's at 7:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But that is that. So we're going to go off with your song, Gray, and then possibly a little bit. It is funny. I end up where Brandon loves the Absolute Power song. It is an absolute song, so it does fit. But we're going to get out of here with Gray's song first. Then we'll go with that, but we will be out. So thanks, Gray, for joining me. Thanks, everybody, and we'll talk to you later.
しました感動して感謝しました本当に大好きです私は普通の男ではありません私はもう本性の愛です私にからかわないでくださいそうしないとあなたは消えてしまいます私は普通の男ですでも私はあなたを殺しますだからそのまま受け取ってください足元に注意した方がいいよ準備をしてくださいフォローしないと大変なことになりますよ私に伝わらない私はあなたを殺します私は日本の愛ですあなたは警告されました
Has something to be afraid of, but everyone should know what our heroes are made of. But after night terrors and beast world come and gone, everyone's afraid of both the brains and the brawn. It's all part of her plan. Yeah, Amanda Waller is the man. She's going for absolute power. Yeah, she wants it all. She's going for absolute power. Oh, she's heading for a fall. She's going for absolute power. Somebody stop the wow. Well, it doesn't look good on Earth or out in space. She's got a brainiac queen and a robot failsafe. Better not forget she has her suicide squad. She has brain bombs attached so they don't wander off. It's all part of her plan. She's got the Batman! She's going for absolute power! She wants it all! She's going for absolute power! Oh, she's heading for a fall! She's going for absolute nobody stops.